What's up, YouTube? So today I want to look at making pads, atmospheres, and experimental kind of stuff using Kilohearts Phase Plant. So let's dive in and have a look. So there's various ways I like to approach creating pads and atmospheres, and I generally like to do it in a very sort of experimental kind of fashion. So it's hard for me to outline like specific processes. However, that being said, there are a couple of tricks that I do use quite often. Simple approaches that you can then take further and apply various different techniques to create all sorts of experimental pads and atmospheres and stuff. So first thing I want to outline is taking advantage of unison to create a very wide sound. So what I want to do to outline this is let's just open up an analog and pop on a sine wave. So I've explained this before, but what unison is doing is it's creating a copy of the sound, and you've got various parameters that you can use to layer them. You can either detune the one against the other, spread them left and right, and various other kind of parameters. But when using a sine wave, it creates a very interesting kind of audio process that happens. And what's happening essentially is you're creating a difference in the phase of these two sine waves, because obviously they're being detuned slightly. And that creates almost a beating effect that has a particular frequency that's not the same as the pitch. So let me just explain this in an audio example rather. It'll probably be a little bit easier to understand. So you've actually got quite a lot of, audio control over, the shape of these movements by just applying sort of different unison settings over here. So one thing that's very cool to create pads is to create, a stack of these and tweak the unisons ever so slightly. So you have these different beating motions happening. And one of the really cool things about Phase Plant is it allows you to obviously send these all to a different lane, like I've explained in various other tutorials. So you can process them individually, you can tune them individually, so you can do all sorts of experimental things with very, very basic waveforms to create these kind of complex tonal beds, like reverb, like atmospheres and experimental pads and all sorts of stuff like that. So what we can do is we can just hold Control and duplicate our entire little stack over here. And let's go ahead and detune this. Let's just start off with an octave for now, or tune it up by an octave. And we can go here and we'll actually probably want to play it and just tweak these detune and spread on the second one ever so slightly. So let's rinse and repeat this process. Just keep creating stacks of these, tune it up a little bit, tweak the settings. Let's stick with octaves for now. Could actually just use this harmonic, it'll probably be a bit quicker. And then just tweak these a little bit until you've created this kind of, how can I say, this very big paddy atmosphere sound, but you'll hear as you kind of add these layers, you're building this, pad sound. Cool. So now what we can do is let's just send, for example, group 1 and 2 to lane 1, and then 2 and 3 to lane 2, and then both of those to lane 3 to do like a kind of master processing. So let's set this to lane 3 over here, and let's set our bottom 2 to lane 2 over here. And let's slap a reverb here, or maybe a delay, a ping pong, and then maybe a reverb, and we can actually just copy these across and then tweak them a little bit. So here what I like to do is create a bunch of LFOs, but I want to turn the retrigger off because I want this kind of, like, for example, I don't want them to sync up. I want there to be this kind of like inevitability in the sound itself and in the movement of the sound. Please excuse that flippin' bird outside. So what we can do here is let's just create like 3 for now, and then just create like a different frequency on each one. And then we can set these to various parameters here. Even like the detune ever so slightly is nice. But try not to apply, for example, LFO1 to the same parameter on the different units, if that makes it, on the different modules. So let's do a bit of detune on this one, a little bit of spread on this one, and then vice versa with this one over here. A bit of spread on this one, and then maybe a bit of detune on this one. Okay, so that's the basics for now, how I create these kind of like beds to start, experimenting with in terms of like pads and atmospheres and that kind of stuff. So here, to add a little bit of extra, texture into the sound, I like to cross-modulate these different oscillators with each other. So you can, for example, send this audio rate modulation output to like the phase input of this one. You see here it's giving it a little bit of a kind of a texture in that waveform. And we can maybe send the low frequency to modulate like this one, for example. Just play around with it. Cool, that's sounding great. So let's maybe put some EQ over here before this kind of master reverb, just to cut out the low frequencies. I don't actually want to remove the kind of, how can I say? I don't want to remove that actual oscillator because it's creating kind of like this weird movement, which is really cool in the sound. So what I actually want to do here is let's set this to one voice and put on some glide so that it slides between the notes when we trigger them. Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Stay tuned for the next episode where I'm going to go through some other techniques and stuff for making pads and atmospheres. A big thanks to IDM Mag, proud supporters of the dance music scene and my channel. I'm going to be uploading this preset to my Patreon for all my $5 supporters, so if you want to know what that's all about, check out the link that's on the screen right now. See you guys next time.